Welcome to Navigating the Aftermath, the podcast where we explore the journey of rebuilding and rediscovery after life storms. Join us as we delve into stories of resilience, triumph, and transformation, offering insights and inspiration to guide you through your own path of healing and growth. I'm your host, Dasha Lazaruk, a certified life coach. Today, we're navigating the aftermath of a separation and going through a divorce. I have the honor and privilege of introducing you to an incredibly courageous and resilient woman. She is here to share her story with us, offering 100% transparency and honesty. To protect her privacy, we've changed her name. Please join me in welcoming our guest, Jennifer. Just know in your situation that co-parenting, this is the unicorn that does not exist, or it exists but somewhere in the magical land. Would you say to our listeners that co-parenting is that unicorn, or how do you think co-parenting exists with two parents who are divorcing but they still gotta parent their kids? Does only parallel parenting exist, or do you think there are situations where co-parenting can happen?
Well, the way I look at it is, if they weren't a partner with you in the marriage, how are they going to be a partner with you in parenting? And were they really actively a parent in the marriage anyway? Chances are no. They didn't really engage the kids emotionally. They might have been physically there, but when they're not physically there, available for you because they're living a whole different life, they were never there for the kids either. So when you now draw the line in the sand and you're like, we're done, and you're not in the same house, it's there. Co-parenting isn't even a thing with somebody that's unhealthy, because they can't, they don't know how to be a good parent anyway. They never were. And so it's parallel parenting. And ultimately what you're going to find is they will constantly try to find ways to tear you down because you're the one that chose to leave and you have bruised their ego. And ultimately, I guess the other thing I would say is, the divorce document, we're not divorced yet. It's turning ugly fast. And it's the true colors, of course, always come out. And everything he's accusing me of or thinks I'm responsible for, I have documentation to prove I'm not. It's like, what in the world is he thinking? Right? It makes no sense, but okay. And so the interesting thing about all of that is his divorce counter document is brutal, line by line by line, of all these things that I'm supposed to adhere to. But guess what? That's your biggest asset, because then when he pulls the crap that he does because he doesn't abide by any rules, you get to email him and copy and paste that section from his divorce decree on, well, since we are adhering to your words, you get to blah, 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 because this is how you want it. And they hate that. But that's been the other huge ace in my pocket is I use his divorce decree to create the boundaries that he never has been capable of keeping. And because it's in writing in his divorce decree, and I copy the section and then put in writing, and I use ChatGPT to write it not in a negative way, and I wait 24 hours to send something, and I have ChatGPT rewrite it in legal verbiage so that it sounds, flat, not emotional. Ultimately, that's been the best asset for me is his decree, because I'm not the one setting the boundaries for him. He's the one that set them and expected me to abide by them. And the court expects him to abide by them as well. It's been amazing.
Yeah. So you can take something that can be horrifying, can be really daunting, can be really just big and heavy. You convert that into something that you can help yourself with, that transformation. And what would you say your biggest obstacle have been during this process?
There's so many. But I think I would say that, financially it gets ugly very quickly. You're dealing with divorce attorneys and money and, him not being willing to pay correct child support or any of that jazz, and there's no alimony going either way right now and all this stuff. And I would say my biggest challenge has been, or obstacle has been, it's become a part-time job, pulling every single document together, asking people to document and go get it notarized and turn into the court, everything to negate all the accusations and what he thinks he deserves. And so that's been the biggest obstacle, is because, when you are, number one, the 100% parent, that takes time, taking the kids to all the things and all of that. And not just the physical time. It's now that he's not there, they'll come in and sit and talk to me for an hour or two at night when they come home. They would never do that. He'd always be like, "Are you done yet? Can I turn the TV back on?" Or he would fall asleep while they're crying about their night or whatever, right? And so you've got all that parenting. You have your job that you're trying to keep amongst literally not losing it at any moment. And then on top of it, you have another part-time job trying to A, process the trauma, and B, getting everything documented to not lose everything, because the man is delusional and wants to win at all costs. But at the end, he's losing his children along with everything, and so that's what I would say has been the biggest obstacle, because the week after I kicked him out, he had to come over for something. Now he's not allowed over here without permission, and I would say no. But I said to him, he kind of told me what his family was saying he needed to do with the divorce and things he needed to get from me and all these things. And I said to him, listen, you can do whatever you want, but here's the deal. Your children have lived under this roof with you their whole lives. They know what's the truth and what is you trying to be vindictive. Your family doesn't care about me, and they sure don't care about your kids. And so if you go down the road that I think that you're saying they're telling you should go on, guess what? Take the house, take everything from me. I am a survivor. I was married to you for over 20 years. I can survive anything. And he didn't like that. And I go, but at the end of the day, you can take everything from me, but I'll lose everything. But guess what? You're going to lose. And this is not a threat. This is the truth. You are going to lose your children's respect and the relationship with them. And now neither of us would have a house. You don't have me, you don't have our dogs, and you sure as hell won't have these kids. And that's not a threat, because our kids are smart. We taught them to be smart. They're excel in sports. They know how to read people, and they've heard what the reality is since the day they were born. And if you go down this alley, you're only going to hurt yourself, because at the end of the day, the kids know the truth of who you are and what you've done. And so that was a week after I kicked him out. And guess where we are right now? My youngest is not on speaking terms with him, has put line, and she's 15, put line in the sand, put boundaries in place, put very specific things in a text message to him saying, please don't approach me when you see me. I need to heal from X, Y, and Z that his actions have affected her, and embarrassing and all these things. And then he approached her in public, because she goes, don't act like everything's buddy and we're fine, because it's not. No 15-year-old girl should have to know that her dad is done X, Y, and Z. And then of course he approaches her. So then she puts in a group text with him, me, and her. Dad, I specifically asked you not to, And his response was, I think you should look at the situation differently. I didn't approach you. You were by me. So of course I asked you about this and this. And literally gaslit her in that message. And that was the end. That was the last conversation she's had with him, because she is working with a good therapist that is teaching her adequate boundaries. And if those are her feelings, and the man did things that humiliated her and embarrassed her and made her angry, he does not respect those feelings. And so now she's not talking to him as of now. My son is playing the game, meaning he knows exactly who his dad is, but he knows that his dad lives vicariously through him and his sports, and his dad will do anything to get him all the top equipment and all the things, right? So he can't stand looking at his dad, but he's playing the game because he knows why not, right? If as he said to me once, he goes, Mom, if he used you all these years and financially abused us by paying prostitutes when we didn't have money and all of that, and you had to work from sun up to sundown to provide for us because he couldn't make ends meet with his business, and little did we know the money was going out the door to the prostitutes. He goes, it makes me sick to even look at him because I know who he is and he's a shell of a man. This is my 17-year-old son. He's leaps and bounds above most adults, but it's because I always worked on personal development with these kids. I always worked on, really helping them understand people's emotions and validating emotions. And now they have stumbled on that side of TikTok too, to understand narcissism. And they also are working with a great therapist that is helping them understand boundaries and appropriate behaviors. And then my oldest is, she'd gone off to college and then she's stuff. So that relationship, because she wasn't in the house, dissipated anyway, because out of sight, out of mind to him, whatever. So there's really not been a relationship there. And then he just in the last 6 months did a couple of really dumb financial moves that affected her. And he ended up basically taking some money from her by duping her, and she made him give it back. And so at that point, there will be no relationship with him anymore. It's the line is drawn. So that's the kind of the thing is, and again, I know he's telling people that I'm being difficult and I'm keeping the kids away from him and all that, but the people in his world don't know who he is. And when all of this comes to the end, it will be shocking to them to see all of who he is, and that I have documentation for it. And I'm just trying to protect my kids from a man that's never cared about them and was financially abusing us, emotionally abusing us, having affairs. No person would want anyone having to deal with that. And luckily my kids are smart and they are resilient and they're angry and they get to be angry.
Yes, yes. And you're a very, very strong mom, great mom. Not only you go through this process, figuring all of this out and uncovering all of the truth, you're building the foundation. You're helping your kids build the foundation, and everything that you guys been learning about the boundaries, setting the boundaries and seeing the consequences of these boundaries and really being committed 100%. That's an amazing process. This is very difficult. And yes, many people see you as a strong woman. They don't know what you're actually going through, and all of these things, they cost a lot, a lot of resources. And what would you say your support systems and resources that you found most helpful in navigating this transition?
Good question, because I was actually going to say, I see these TikToks that always say behind a strong woman is the experience nobody knows about. Or I wish people didn't call me strong because I've had to be strong. I didn't want to be strong. And, and as I said, it was kind of perfect because I've always been the driver, the worker, the getting crap done all the time. Right. And my daughter, who's 21, had started dating this guy, that dynamic. Right. And he makes a lot of money. And she said, Mom, it's just so weird because I always felt like I was going to be the one to be working, be a working mom and making it happen for the family and making the money for the vacations and all this. And if I marry him or if it goes there, I won't be that person. I've always wanted to be you. I've always wanted to be that person. And she goes, so I feel like I'm betraying you by not following in your footsteps. And I was shocked. And I said to her, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, do you think the day that I married your dad, I had any vision of wanting to be the mom to grind out at work and be successful? I wanted to be the mom where the husband provided. And I got to work if I wanted to work, but I got to be focused on you kids. That was what the plan was. I never wanted to be what I am. I've had to be what I am. And I would give it away in a heartbeat to have somebody that actually provided and took care of me. And she goes, you what? And I go, yes. And she goes, you haven't wanted to be this powerhouse, successful business person? I'm like, never. I wanted to be a good mom. I wanted to be a good wife, but I had to be. And she literally was almost in tears going, I am so sorry that this is what your life has turned into. And I'm like, and people from the outside would say, congratulations, you're a successful person. Right now, things are going down the toilet as fast as they can because when you're unraveling your life, you can't work at that level that you worked all those years, right? But ultimately, it's been an eye-opener for my daughter and my kids. And it was interesting when I called her, when I uncovered the whole financial lie, and I told my two kids that were at home what was going on. And then I called her and I said, okay, just to let you know, I'm done. And I told her and all this. And she goes, Mom, About 2 years ago when you were going to therapy, remember you kind of sat us each down and asked us our opinion if you said we're done and you're done and you didn't pull the trigger. And she goes, Mom, if you don't pull the trigger this time, I will never forgive you because you deserve better. And now that I'm dating a man that actually treats me the way dad never treated you, I see what's out there and you deserve better. And our relationship will be ruined because you are allowing those two siblings to be under a roof with a man that is a narcissist and treats everybody awful and takes no accountability. So I'm just telling you, Mom, right now, if you do not follow through, I will never forgive you. And this is because she'd been out of the house for a couple of years and worked on herself a lot to be in that space. So ironically, my kids have been a good support. I have a handful of good friends that have been through the whole thing with me. And what's been interesting is as people are learning about the divorce, I'm not putting it on social media. I just, because, well, they're saying I can't and all this stuff. And I'm purposely choosing to keep it under the radar and only telling the people that are close. But everybody, when they find out that's been around us is like, yeah, I wondered why you stayed so long. He was awful to you. He always would tear you down. He'd always put you down. And you are the smartest, successful person we know. I wondered why you put up with that because he's nothing. Does he even work? I mean, he has his own business and stuff, but it was so shocking to me that every person that I told that knew us was like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Why didn't you do it sooner? And so they, by default, have been my support person because they know who he is and what he's, and it's unraveling in front of people's eyes anyway. And then the one thing that I would say is wave the white flag. Your people that are in your corner know at some level or not what you are really going through. And there was one night that things were just so heavy, I couldn't breathe. And I remember reaching out to my one friend that lives in the neighborhood. And I said, I'm waving the white flag. Emotionally, I can't function. And I just want to know if you can gather a handful of people and just bring dinners in for the next week. So I don't have to think about feeding these kids. I don't have to think about the effort of making me something to eat because right now I don't eat if I don't prepare something, right? Like it was so much effort. So I waved the white flag and the one gal, they're very successful. She didn't bring one meal. She ordered these like Factor X or what, what's the one that comes to your door that
like HelloFresh?
Like a HelloFresh thing. She ordered 10 HelloFresh meals for me and had them delivered. And because she's like, I just want you to have something to throw in the oven or the crock pot, right? And then other people brought in meals. And then the other thing was when you're doing everything in your power to keep kids from losing it, keep yourself from losing it, and working to the bone to try to make ends meet. And then on top of that, you are having another part-time job trying to diffuse the entire divorce. What falls through the cracks? Your house, right? And so one time I said to my one friend, I said, you know what? I said, I just need help. I need somebody to come mop my floors and clean my toilets. Like that would take the pressure off. And so funny enough, she goes, I hope you don't mind. But instead of me coming and doing it, I just scheduled my cleaning people to come next week. Right. And then she gave, and what's interesting is then what she does for work, I could help her out with. So we've done trade 2 other times and her cleaning people have come and done the work. So she goes, if I give you the money, you will pay a bill with it. But right now, a bill is not as heavy as the toilets and the dirty floors and all of that. So I'm just going to schedule that. And let's put a deal together. If you help me this many hours, this is what my people will do, right? So that was my white flag, was help me out with meals. And it was help me clean my house. And then one other thing that somebody suggested to me, because nobody knows how to help somebody going through a divorce, they're like, how can I help you? And you know what I'd say is I said, you know what? My son is worried about putting gas in his car. And my kids, they go out with their friends. And my kid is bringing a home lunch. And every day at school, at high school, he sits in the restaurant eating a home lunch. If you could just if you are out and about and want to grab a gift card to Chick-fil-A or the gas station or whatever, it would be such a load off. And I said that because if somebody's asking how I can help, normally they do mean it. Some of them don't, but some of them do. And so when I said that, because I'm like, I don't have money for gas sometimes because I'm not getting even remotely enough money for child support, and I'm covering all the bills in the house, and no alimony. And so when I would say that, and I'm like, it's stressful financially. And you know what was amazing is every time I needed money, and not all the money, but enough money to cover what needed to come next, I would randomly have somebody throw money in my Venmo. Or I had one day that one evening I had a knock at my door, and it was this beautiful wood tray with all these pasta sauces and pasta and loaf of bread and an envelope with $500. And I have no clue who did it. And I know that not everybody has a network of people that they can rely on and all of that kind of thing. But the other thing is, if I didn't have that network, you'd be darn sure I'd be going to the women's shelter locally because they have so many resources. And so that's where they can give you food. They can help you with things that your kids need. So luckily I have a good community of people that have helped me out. But if I didn't, that would be my resource.
Yes, and having this ability to ask for help, that is one of the key components as well.
Yep. So that's where I kind of say, wave the white flag. You're not going to get a medal for powering through this on your own. And the people, and the other thing is normally, if you're still listening and you go down the rabbit hole of learning that you're with a narcissist, the narcissist always made you feel like you were not empathetic. You didn't care about anybody's feelings and you were whatever. Well, okay, it's that you couldn't connect with him because nothing you did was enough, right? So then you slowly start to close your heart because you're not getting reciprocated to. But with everybody around you, you do serve others because you're an empathetic person. That's why he chose you. He wanted to suck the life out of you because he doesn't have it himself. And so the thing that I realized, I had one friend, I was literally bawling on the phone with her. And I said to her, I said, I feel so awful. Like I have no money. And she Venmo'd me $100 while we were on the phone. And I'm like, no, I know you don't have the money. I know you're struggling financially. And she goes, do you know how many times the roles were reversed over the last 5 years that we were talking and you Venmo'd me $50, $100? You sent me some medical supplies for my son. You have given more to me than I ever could repay you. And you know what? That $100 is going to pay a bill, but I get to pay it forward to you. And so that's the other thing that I also try to remind people is if you're empathetic, you probably have served others, minor, major, whatever, and people want to help you because you have done things for them. So just remember, don't be a hero because people do want to help if they actually ask you, can I help you? But I'm lucky. I have a big network of people. My church has a lot of people, all that. And that's where I said to one gal that's going through divorce, that doesn't have a good network of people. I'm like, then get your butt to church. Because if you believe in God, I don't care what church you go into, if they know what you're going through, they will help you. Because people that have Christ in their heart have the light within. And when they see somebody struggling, they will help.
Yes. Oh, amazing. What would you say your self-care is, and how do you prioritize that amidst the stress and uncertainty of a divorce? Just highlight maybe your top three self-care routines that are must-have for you to keep functioning.
That's a good question. Wasn't doing self-care because it was all about the kids and the house and the bills, and there just weren't enough hours in the day. Like I was falling asleep with my phone in my hand working till I couldn't keep my eyes open any longer. And so for me, I have done a couple of things. Now, I know this sounds crazy, and I literally said this again this morning to my friend, is I work, trying to make ends meet, and had a lot of work to do. And by 8 o'clock at night last night, I literally laid on the couch and scrolled TikTok for 3 hours. And I just couldn't work anymore. And as somebody that's a doer, you feel guilty for just doing nothing when you know you have bills that need to be paid. But that's where I've given myself permission, and I keep working on giving myself permission to veg out. Do you know what I'm saying? Just do something mindless, right? And so I'd say that's one of the things. I also have gotten very big on taking baths, and that's when I scroll social media, because when you're in the bath, you're relaxing, and scrolling social media is relaxing as well, for me at least. And so those are two things. And then one of the things that I don't love, but I know I get to do, is my daughter bought me a gym membership that she's paying for, and it's expensive. So I'm exercising, because if I wasn't, the amount of anxiety that builds in your body has no release. So it just builds. And so I've been really focusing on that as well. And then remind me, because now because this is something you worked with me on, a lot, because you realized I was doing nothing for myself. I know we came up with a couple things that must now be habit, because they're not even in my brain. Do you remember what we came up with at the beginning? Do you even remember?
We came up with you reminding yourself of your values. Like, we worked on your core values, that your value that you wrote down on the sticky note, and you really put everything against that. Like, does this situation, this decision align with this value? So that was a part of your self-care routine, as well as budgeting. Because
Oh, yes.
and as you and I talk a lot, that budgeting has such a negative feelings when we talk about it, but budget, and this is what I teach as well, that it's all about money, yes, also time and energy and your effort. So you basically, when you start budgeting money, because that is the easiest, well, it is the hardest and the easiest at the same time. You start thinking in terms of, how do I budget my time? How do I budget my effort and my other resources, my energy in every situation? And it really is a game changer and a part of self-care.
Yes, that's why, because my brain always thinks of self-care as action, tangible, where yes, you're right. Like, does this align with my core values? And most mothers probably that are listening would say their main priority is keeping the kids safe and healthy. And so anything that I do, when I sit and go, oh my gosh, is this crazy that I'm doing this or whatever? Like, you start to overthink the self-care of, no, I'm being a good mom. This is what a good mom does, right? Is takes care of the kids and protects them. And so that was exactly that. And then figuring out the budgeting, and also, going through and figuring out, like, okay, what's coming in, what needs to go out, what am I short? And then literally, wrong word, manifesting it, but like, it just was, help me see, because it was painful to run the numbers all the time. But that's where random things would come up, that I could do things for people, that I could earn a little extra money, or that again, randomly something would show up on my front porch, or somebody would Venmo me, or I needed something for something, and somebody's like, oh, let me just get that for you. So exactly, self-care is budgeting, because all of us, nobody likes money. Nobody likes looking, especially when the numbers don't match. You're not bringing enough in. But once you know what you need, it gives a weight off of you a little, because in the back of your mind, if you don't know what you need, it's just this big heavy cloud, where if you know what you need, you now have a target. You're not shooting at a target in the dark anymore, right? So yes, that's definitely for sure. Those two things were huge.
Yeah. Well, to wrap up, I like to ask you this question. What has been the most transformative lesson you've learned from navigating the aftermath of the separation? And how has it shaped your approach to life, to yourself, to relationship, to parenting? You can choose one, or you can touch on all of this.
Okay, so what's the biggest lesson that I've learned?
Formative lesson, yes, that you learn in navigating the aftermath of separation and going through the divorce, being amidst of this transformational process.
I think that what I have learned is, well, I've learned that I joke that I'm gonna have to write a book. If I actually write a book of 20-part series, it's going to be under an alternate name, because you don't trigger a narcissist, right? But I joke that I'm going to write a book and it's going to say in beautiful, the cover will be beautiful writing that says in font, trust God's timing. And then in block letters below, it's going to say, because you can't make this shit up. Like that's what it's going to say, right?
That is
Because
perfect.
like I sit and go, I trust God's timing. Do you know how many people are like, well, if you knew you were didn't you knew for about 6 years that you didn't love him anymore, but you knew you weren't supposed to leave, but you didn't know why, right? And there was nothing to, you just didn't like him. You didn't like the way he treated you, but there was nothing tangible to say it's over, right? And I always, and they're like, and how did you not see the signs? And how did you this and that? And I truly believe that God has a hand, and this is what I believe. God, other people can say the universe has a hand in everything. And God gave me little nuggets, but I had nothing to connect them to. Like little puzzle pieces would drop out of the sky, but it was just a puzzle piece. And now that I'm sitting down putting the puzzle together, things are starting to connect, right? And so I would say that what I've learned the most is I trust God's timing because number one, if I had left him 10 years ago, if I had learned all the things that I'm learning now, and that would have been a shifting point if I had learned about all that stuff, my kids would be 10 years younger. They wouldn't be able, the only way they would be able to formulate who he really is would be through my voice. And now they're watching it in real time and they're smart, they're old enough, and I don't have to say a word. They are, because what happens is when they're young, you see who he is and you have to create boundaries, but then you're the bad guy. The kids don't know who to believe, all of that. So I as I've said to the kids, when it's been hitting the fan and they're like, I am so sorry, mom, that you're dealing with this and all of that, because they're seeing a person they don't know, just like I am. I would say my biggest lesson that I've said to my kids repeatedly, and I'm gonna cry, is I'm like, I would endure all the pain again to have the three of you and to have you old enough to make the decisions for yourself of what relationship you want with your father going forward. So I say I trust God's timing because it couldn't be more perfect. My oldest is at an age where she's starting to have real relationships that turn into future relationships. And we all know people that figure out the emotional trauma they've been through when they're 35 and married, and it wrecks their marriage. So I'm grateful that she is getting to heal before the real relationships start. So she knows what a healthy relationship is and knows how to create boundaries. And then the younger two, that they are old enough to navigate it themselves as well. So that's the biggest lesson that I have learned is God's timing is everything and God has a hand in everything. And while we don't know what the future holds, I believe that when you are a good person and you help others and you're not vindictive and spiteful, you are just standing up for truth and righteousness, you'll be taken care of. So all the noise is just noise with the divorce and the blame game and all the things, because at the end of the day, if you're a good person, it all works out. It's not supposed to be easy, because through the trials, the lessons, you learn the lessons. And my daughter, I guess I'd wrap it up with this. My daughter was at church and was speaking about what kind of her truth, right? And she stood up and said, my parents are going through a divorce. My mom is divorcing my dad, and she goes, it's been really rough. And I was crying, and my brother came into my room and saw I was crying and said, what's wrong? And she's like, I'm just so sad, and it's so hard, and it's this and that. And seeing mom struggle with money and seeing that dad doesn't care about us financially and blah, 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 blah. And my son said to him, God gives the biggest trials to his strongest warriors, and he is preparing us for big things in the future. And what we learn now is going to carry us through our lives. So we either get to play the victim to all of this and be sad. And he goes, and we get to be sad. This is hard. But we also get to learn, because if you don't learn what God's trying to teach you, you're going to get the lesson over and over. And I do not want this lesson again. And the fact that my kids are this resilient speaks volumes that not everybody has that. And I'm aware of that. But I'm so grateful that they see God's hand in everything, to know that it will all be okay and that they are wise beyond their years and they will be able to create in life whatever they want to create because I stood up for my values and their values. And when you do that, the world is your oyster. Life will work out. It's just not easy. That's
Yes.
the truth.
Oh, that is, I just want to take a moment and really feel everything that you said, because that lessons you probably and your kids wouldn't probably learn otherwise. And it's just remembering that such a huge transformation as a divorce. This is a catalyst for big transformation, big change, and some lessons that we cannot learn without that huge life altering events. We
Right.
cannot go through life unscattered. So it's looking at all of that experience as learning lessons. And for the kids, especially learning during the teenage years, they're taking this and they're holding this and like a torch through the rest of their lives, and they can really light up someone else's torch,
Mm-hmm.
sharing all of these experiences. And that is so easy, and I see it in my work, to feel guilty and ashamed, and yet it is not the time for these feelings. We got to learn how to leave these emotions behind, because that is a beautiful storm. This is like a perfect storm, chaotic, heavy, scary, and then afterwards your ground is fertilized, you're a different person, you rebirth, you emerge from the ashes, and that is so worth it. All of the price that we pay going through divorce on so many levels is so worth it. And Jennifer, thank you so much for your time and for your honesty, your transparency. You moved me so much, and I hope our listeners feel that as well, feel the power and feel moved, feel that they're stronger than you. And I always say that, right? You're stronger than you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so true. You find the strength, you found that courage, you find that ability to go through fire. And on the other side, you are a renewed woman. And that is incredible.
You are. And I hope that anybody listening isn't going to say, well, I just don't have her strength. Well, this is 9 months of learning and becoming stronger. And there were days that I literally could not get out of bed, and not often, luckily, because I wouldn't allow myself to do that, And I know that a lot of people go there, but for me, there were evenings that I was on the verge of tears, and I'd say to the kids, please just don't even come in here, because I might say something that you shouldn't hear, and I might not be in the right frame of mind to treat you with respect, because I am literally breaking. So just know I love you, but I am not okay tonight. And I gave myself that permission. So yes, there's you heal through your truth, you heal through time. And some days I'm strong, and other days I listen over and over to that one song that I put my keys into the side of his little souped up 4-wheel drive, and that's with the
Yes.
Louisville Slugger and about that's like, because if I don't get the anger out, I don't know who I would become, right? So it just, you will find your strength as you find your truth. And again, as you say, with the values, there's this meme on TikTok that these moms are doing that's like, I wouldn't kill somebody for you. And then these moms are like, I'd take a bullet for you. I would this, I would this, I would this. And it's like so funny. And that's the thing is that I can't imagine going through this without children, because they're why I do this. They are why I fight to get out of bed. I fight to make money. I fight to cover the bills, because at the end of the day, I know without a shadow of a doubt, they will walk away from all of this and go back and go, my mom was a badass. She did everything she could. And sometimes it wasn't enough, but she did it anyway. And they will never say, I didn't stand up for them, I didn't fight for them, and I didn't do everything in my power to help them rise from the ashes as well. So that's the thing, is it's not always pretty, and you're not always going to be strong, but you hopefully, as I always say, you just hope you have more good days than bad. And the more good days you have, they compound. And if you really journal or otter AI or any of that to keep getting it out, to process it, you'll go through it a lot faster, and be able to handle the what in the world just happened stuff, because it just happened. So, and I would say also, Your friends are going to give you advice. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. But I would say also what's single-handedly helped me through this is having you weekly as a coach. You've helped me write emails to him. You've helped me understand the personality dynamics. You've helped me with my budget. All the things that you could pick apart from friends, and they might not have your best interest in mind because of their own life experience. But I couldn't get through this without you, because you have guided me through things that I would not have known how to navigate. And my parents and friends would not have navigated it with grace with me. It would have been all hell's breaking loose because we're going to fight this thing and, whatever. Right. So it's helped me handle a lot with grace, because you've helped me keep it tangible and real and value-based. And yeah, I'm mad at a lot of things, but being mad doesn't solve anything.
Thank you. This is why I get up every morning. And this is why I'm grateful for my own story, for my own experience that I went through during my divorce, that I can come and help and reassure that you're going to get on the other side if you're willing to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you again for giving me this honor and privilege to work with you and guide you and help you and coach you through this huge transformation. And it's such a blessing to see you blooming, and in so many different ways that you probably didn't even imagine you would bloom. So that is so rewarding for me to hear as a coach and as a podcast host, and witness all of this transformations. And to our listeners, if you're on the verge of this transformation and change, hope you feel inspired and hope you feel strong and courageous enough to go through that, and know that you are not alone, and know that so many people are willing to help you and support you, that you can do it. If these two women on the podcast today could do it, you can do it as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. And I think when time passes, I'm going to have my kids listen to this, because I think that they don't get to hear what we think and what our value. You don't talk to your kids that way. But I think if they listen to this, they would go, I had no idea that's what you went through. And now's not the right time. But mark my words, they'll be better for getting to hear the good and the bad.
I love it. Thank you for joining us on Navigating the Aftermath. Remember, no matter how challenging the journey may seem, you are not alone. Subscribe for more empowering stories, practical wisdom to help you navigate life's twists and turns. Until next time, keep moving forward with courage and conviction.